Welcome, everyone, to the Concealer Chronicles, and you are here with moi, Rachel Moore. A pleasure to have everybody here, and it's great to have you here and to be part of the show this evening. I have to just turn that thing off because it's in my ear. You guys know when you're producing everything and it's all going in the background, you're like, yes, nothing else is happening. It's all fine. We all kind of get that crazy little laser beam eye look going on in our eyes. That was me just now. So, but in any case, welcome to the show. It's great to have you guys here. Welcome to the Concealer Chronicles. Anytime you look for the hashtag Concealer Chronicles, you're probably going to see a lot of my shares, but I'm hoping to see more of yours because we all have these moments that happen all the time, and yet we are all women in charge. And that's what the show is for. These are the good, the bad, but the real stories of being a woman in charge. Now, you could be in charge of knitting. You could be in charge of 3 cats. You could be in charge of a business. You could be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Perhaps you are a homemaker or a doctor or an author, or once again, you like to fly fish, something like that. You are in charge of something and some things that you know about. And that's what we highlight on this show. So welcome to you, everyone, again. Please to share the show. We're growing as we go, and I'm loving the interviews we're having with different women. And if you identify as a woman, you are welcome to this show, welcome to this group. Obviously, men can watch too, but we do have a Facebook group for the Concealer Chronicles, and that is strictly for people who identify as women. So, but thank you guys for showing up, and it's great to have you here. Just know too, you can always watch any of the videos of the interviews on ConcealerChronicles.live. And it's been a great run so far. We've been live for a little bit over a month, and I'm very excited to keep talking to women about all these different topics. Now, some of them are kind of light and fun. Some of them, probably a few more of them, we get a little serious about because, you know, we're women and we do that. And we were like, no, I'm serious about stuff and I need to share this with you right now. So just remember that sharing is caring. And I would love it if you could share the show with your fellow women or people who really should clue in about what it feels to be a woman. I will share briefly that, and I know my guest actually has some rather Concealer Chronicles moments she had today, but I shared earlier on Instagram about, I always think of the song by Shania Twain, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. And I feel like that once a month. Okay. And so that was what my day was like. And so but yet we push through. We're going through all the bodily things that women go through, but yet here we are and we're getting stuff done. Speaking of getting stuff done, I'm really excited to bring on to this week's guest. Joann Krall is someone I've seen and known in the social media circles, and she is an extraordinary woman, entrepreneur, and an organizer. And Joann, welcome to the show. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you for having me. Very exciting.
It is exciting. I don't know if you mind sharing with people, because we do get real here. When we were having you join the show earlier and you said you'd be right here, what was happening going on in the background?
The seconds before I was going to join the show, my daughter had been filling up water at the fridge and she got distracted and there was water all over my kitchen and all over my basement. It had been running for about 5 minutes or so. Yeah. Yep. Thankfully, it's a very slow. We always make fun of it because we make fun of my husband. We're like, this stinks. It fills so slow. Well, it's a good thing it does because.
Well, now you know what he's going to do. Be like, see, it's a good thing. If it hadn't been so slow, we would have had a big problem in mold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had so I didn't share this with you, but my daughter is she likes arts and crafts, and she was making a card. We're going to a wedding this weekend, and she makes cards for people for events. So she'd made a card and she wanted to make an envelope. So she's been pulling up YouTube videos for how to make a card. Now, the only tape in the house we have is packing tape, and it's on one of those like tape guns, the big clunky ones that like have the big sharp thing. So I had took some off earlier and set it on the table. So when you were explaining to me about what's happening to you, I'm hearing this like of the tape gun. I'm like, all right, I will be right back because I have a feeling someone is just reeling off all the tape and not asking me for help. Yeah. And I was right. And so that's where we come from. But we deal with these things. And now, Joann, how many, tell us a little bit about your family and your makeup over there. What are you dealing with on a daily basis?
Not probably as much as you, because my daughters are 19 and 17. I have 2 daughters. So they're pretty self-sufficient, but things happen still. And there is, it's a whole different set of challenges that come along, but, I definitely have more independence, although they interrupt me still to this day, when I'm trying to work and get stuff done, they just come in. And so right before this, I said, quiet on the set, do not come into my office.
And we'll see if they obey that. Although I was impressed with one of them. You wanted them to come down to help you out, and they're like, well, "You said not to come down." And really good. You've got that. You've got them organized already. That's awesome. And so now I wanted to bring you on too because and thank you, by the way, Aunt, you filled out the guest form that we have too, and so I'll share the link while you're talking too. But I really am glad you came on too. You are an entrepreneur and you've built a business. So in addition to having your family life and being in charge of that, you are also in charge of your own gig, your own business going on. Would you mind sharing with our audience a little bit about what you have going on with that?
Sure. So I'm a professional organizer. I haven't always been a professional organizer. I worked in the corporate world as an accountant for 13 to 15 years, somewhere around there. I can't even remember. But I retired when I had my girls, and then I went into direct sales. And probably right around the time I turned 40, I figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And that was a product of me trying to figure out how to fix my home, because now I'm running a business and I've got small children and my husband's traveling. And so once I got everything together, that was kind of when organizers were popping up on the scene on TV and everything. And I took a course back then. It wasn't as intuitive as now. You got a thing in the mail, and took a course, started my business. So that was 11 years ago. So I just gave away my age. and so probably halfway in, actually about 5 or 6 years into the business, I decided I wanted to take it all online. But it wasn't until last December that I finally made the cut. So now I'm completely working online with my clients.
That's really, now how does that work? Because, when I think of professional organizer, I figure that you're talking about, well, you're going to show up to my house and start getting elbow deep like I am into all my things. But if you're doing it all digital, can you explain how is that happening? How are you able to do that? And amazing that you can, and also probably saving a lot of money, a lot of benefit. But how are you able to do that as an organizer?
Well, so it only works for a certain type of person. It works for somebody who can actually take direction and do the work on their own or with help, if they have somebody that can physically help them. But it isn't for the person who needs to be handheld the entire time. Although I can handhold virtually, that really isn't productive for people. So typically it's somebody who has a lot of stuff. We start with getting rid of as much stuff as we can and I give direction through that. And I actually have a program that does that. And then it's just talking, okay, tell me how, it's finding out why things build up and why things are coming in and why things aren't staying, organized. Because the way I always look at it is the less stuff you have, and I'm a minimalist, but I'm not a true 100% minimalist. The less stuff you have, you really don't even need systems to keep it all straight because you have hardly anything. So
yeah, exactly.
That's really the basic. So so for 11 years, I was in people's spaces, working with them side by side. But it was time for a shift.
Yeah. No, I think that's great too. And do you, I think we talked about a little bit of this online, and I've talked about some regrets I've had as an entrepreneur, things I wish I would have done from day one. And I know one thing I'd shared in the last few weeks was like, man, if I could go back, on like day 3 of deciding, oh, I'm going to do my business, I would have hired a business coach. And I know in my gut that would have been better. And I think you shared too that it was rather key for you to know when it was time to make this segue into digital. I don't know if you want to share about that too. Just what is, that, and maybe another decision that really has made a key difference for you in your business.
Yeah. So when I first started my business, of course, I was doing it all on my own, which, really isn't hard as an organizer because there's not, there's only so much advertising you can do. And, I could obviously do the finances and all that. But as far as, and it was really kind of walking through trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. I started working out with moms because I was a mom back then. And moms who worked, which is interesting because I'm come full circle and that's really my ideal client again. Then I started working with people who'd lost loved ones or, bigger businesses. And so it really was just figuring that all out all along. And I think so I recently finally hired a coach this year, and just going through some of those processes, I was like, wow, had I done that 11 years ago, I would be in such a different place right now, which is fine. I mean, I was meant to go through the steps that I was meant to go through, but definitely it was game changing because I was really changing the entire layout of my business. So it was like starting new anyways.
Yeah. It's amazing to look at the things that are good and yet are, well, maybe I could just kind of do it myself. And sometimes, I totally agree with what you'd said too about the journey you're meant to take. I even look at where I am now. I've adjusted some things in my business where it's not where I would have seen myself, but I could even say that from a positive aspect. It's not where I would have seen myself. I'm kind of really glad about it. But you go along these steps and you aren't sure where life's going to take you. I mean, who knows? What if that water dripping down had created a sinkhole in your house and you needed to go do something, and thank God it didn't. But, you don't know what's going to happen, and you do sometimes just have to react. You can only be proactive so much, which again, to an organizer, even you're probably like, yeah, sometimes the things are outside your control, but it's great to hear that this was good for your journey. And how is that? So I think you just mentioned too that you were launching something. I don't know if you want to share that about your business and such, but you had a lot of things going on.
So 2 years ago, I created a program. And then a year later, I actually made it into a saleable program. So initially, it was just like a free thing on Facebook that I would run. And then, so I've released it and kind of done things with it. But so for literally, once I made the decision to go all online, I decided to really ramp up that program and offer support with it, because a lot of people will buy it and go through it great. But then there's those handful of people that they just need the guidance. They need somebody to say, nope, I need you to tell me, keep me going, keep me accountable. So I ran a beta back in March with that. And I just launched the first session this month of that program. So with the program with the actual help at the same time. And I plan to do that about, I think, 3 times a year.
That's really cool. I get a little heebie-jeebie at that notion, because there's this expectation. I mean, you can definitely build a business and if you build it, they will come. But if you are doing like a course or things like that, it's like, are people actually going to do it? And, but that's so exciting that you launched it, and it's going to be amazing. And I'm just sharing your website there too, which by the way is amazing looking. I'm actually going to pull it up here because I think you just did a great job. You look so
work in process, but
you look so great. It's like, God, I really do feel like you are in charge of it. Let me bring this up here because this is great. Okay, let me give everybody a good look. So this is Joann's site. It's awesome. Home Business Life, sensibly organized. Look at her. She just looks like she's the boss of all the details. So I love that.
That's an old picture. Shh, don't tell me.
Awesome. Oh, hey, it's not glamour shots, right?
No.
Okay, see, you're all good. It's all fine. But I have seen glamour shots on some pictures. I'm like, I didn't even know those are those even around anymore?
I don't know.
Shots? I don't either. Let's hope not. Let's hope that they're not. I mean, you can pretty much just go stand against a brick wall nowadays and have someone take a picture of you, and it's good enough to put somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to share with you, and I can't remember if I shared it on Facebook. I'm pretty sure I did, that I went a little Hoarders 101 last weekend. Now, when I say that, my daughter is almost 9. And she has shown what I would say are hoarder tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that, though she comes by it completely honestly, because I'm her mom. And when I was young, and even now, I'm a fairly messy person, but not like outrageous. But I swear, when I was young, I had just this room that you had to kind of like weave your way around piles. You know, I'd lay on my bed, just kind of trying to bend my body around the piles that were on the bed.
Yep.
And I'm sure you deal with clients like that. I actually did the thing where we have, and you talk about the space you have, and we have a small house. It's less than 1,600 square feet total. So smallish rooms, it's older. And so we have an area rug, and I segmented it off with tape, speaking of tape. And I did like a toy section, art, because she's a little crafty, and then music, books, and miscellaneous. And those last three are the smaller ones. And I told her, I said, we're going to empty your room onto this carpet. And as a section gets full, you're going to have to go through and decide what goes and what stays on the carpet. And if it goes off the carpet, it's going to get given away or something. Yeah. So that's what I tried. I would love to hear your opinion. It seemed like it worked. And we actually went to IKEA after we got that all done. So because we could eyeball everything right there. We're like, okay, now we know. Now we know what you have to store. Let's go figure out what we're going to get. Do you think that's going to work? And I would love to hear your insight as far as like, if I should try something different.
Well, it's so funny because everyone's like, my kid's a hoarder. And I'm like, yeah, all kids are hoarders by nature. I mean, yeah, there's those select few that don't, but they, kids are collectors. They want to collect things, and they, it's part of them, and they're still trying to figure out what it is that they want. So it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be a lifetime thing. When it becomes a problem is when they start to like hold on to things that are truly like meaningless, like trash, or they're completely have anxiety when they're letting it go. But yeah, no, that's a good strategy. And I mean, it's really what you have to feel your own kid and feel what works for them. I have one child that is a minimalist, and one that was actually they were both collectors of things, but one was collecting a little bit more than the other, and neither one of them are like that now. They're both pretty minimalist, I mean, they've learned to let go of things, but I think that, I don't know, it's just a thing with kids. They just like to have their stuff around them. It makes them feel more creative, and some people are like that too. I'm very much like that. I like everything out. Like I like to see everything, but I just have to be honest with myself and say, all right.
Well,
I get out of control.
That helps for me to hear you say that they're because they're collectors, and they're also still figuring out what they want, like what they want to keep, what identifies them. That helps me a lot, because I can see my daughter and even my son, they go through phases, obviously. I mean, I think my daughter changes her favorite color about every 2 months. Yep. But that's because they're still figuring themselves out, and they will be for a long time. So that, and even as much as like what I kind of drilled down on what was happening, and this was largely on me. I mean, we've been frugal, I will say, for pretty much since the kids had been born. And, and now we're able to kind of start shelving out some opportunities where, okay, now we can afford to get you some decent storage that will help your room. And also they're getting tall enough to where they can actually reach storage, but, which is helpful. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was coming down to where she was actually, anytime there was a box, we'd get something if my husband had something shipped to the house or whatever, or we go to Costco. And so, they always give you the boxes. Yeah. She would pilfer a box, and she'd decorate it because, she's artsy. She'd decorate it. And then she basically was adding to her storage. She's like, well, I need more room. And so she would just start building boxes, and before long, she's just adding stuff to boxes. And we're like, what's in this box? Do you know why these are together? And, but when she said that, I said, okay, we can figure this out. We will make sure you have enough storage, and it'll work, and everything will have its space. You won't be making any more boxes. And if you get to the point where you have to make more boxes, then we need to decide, maybe make some decisions. And she seemed to finally get it then. And so, but I feel very encouraged talking to you, I'm going to say, because I'm sure I'm not the only mom out there, or the only person who thinks that they live, oh my God, they're a hoarder. They're going to start.
I mean, it's not, I tell people all the time, people always want to make these elaborate systems for their kids. I'm like, first of all, their tastes change all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's really about, and I always say, never get rid of stuff on them. Mm-hmm. Because don't throw things away without them knowing, because that is such a violation. And that can, if they do end up having hoarder tendencies, that can just throw them over the edge and want to hold on to everything and never want to let go. So it's okay, we're going to keep this, but how can we keep this in a way that it's not, you want to teach them early that if they're going to collect something, they need to honor it. They need to display it. They can't just throw it in a closet somewhere, because what's the purpose? It's just tucked away, thrown here and there. So you just slowly teach them to respect their stuff and make sure that there's no trash, that type of thing. If everything that they have is of value to them, and really make them think about it and say, okay, that is a value. And they get it. It clicks.
Well, now, aside from the children that we're talking about, obviously you've probably mostly organized adults, I would imagine.
It's everything over the years, but now it's pretty much adults. But I do work with a lot of business owners that have small children, so I'm always, giving them tips. And I've actually worked with some kids on my own, like the parent leaves, and I'm like, okay,
let's do this.
They have to be willing. That's the thing. You never want to. I've worked with some that were not willing, and I'm like, and I just say to them, I feel really bad. Let's just do what makes you comfortable, and don't worry about your parents, and
What do you, and I don't want to dwell on this much more. I just had one more question that kind of relates to hoarders, but I've always wondered, because it does seem like when you get to that extreme, it's a more of a mental space thing. And it's not just like, well, they ran out of room and they just piled up. No, because you talk about the anxiety people can feel when they are told they need to get rid of things. But what do you think of that show? Do you think that's totally like the scum of reality TV, which sometimes I think, I mostly think reality TV is, where it's like, you're not going to fix that in 2 days. You can't, you got to be kidding. Going to fix that in 2 days.
They don't. I've met with Matt, one of the organizers from that show, and they do provide like hours and hours of aftercare. And they're very caring with the people. If you look at any of the, like on the actual Hoarders show, the one that was on, like, what was it, A&E? Yeah. Every organizer they have is super caring. They don't. I think some of it, they have to do. Some of it is that they are showing up when those people need to have everything done in 2 days. It doesn't happen. Right. But they have like a team of huge amounts of people, and the therapists are the biggest thing. It's really, that's, anybody who's a true hoarder, and that would be anybody who's like probably a 3 and beyond, because there's levels, the stages of hoarding. There's people that are a 1, which could be anybody, and then a 2 is, but once you hit 3, that's when you start hitting the, it's not healthy. It's not healthy to be in the space, and then it goes up from there. Those people need severe counseling. It's usually trauma-based. A lot of times you'll look at these people and they were incredibly organized at one point in their life, to the point where they were obsessive about cleaning and having everything in place. And what happens is something happens to them, and then they can't fix their obsession, so they just go the opposite direction. Wow. Yeah, I've seen that in a family member of mine. Yeah. So that's why it's important to keep things at a minimum, because if you are the type that needs to obsess and keep things clean, if you don't have a lot of stuff, it makes But trauma is usually the trigger for that.
I would imagine. Well, and so let's talk about that too. Like, so and talk about like when you get started with somebody. So obviously it could be trauma, but what if they're just, someone comes to you and they're like, help. What's your process for getting started with somebody to know that you're going to get in their space and you're going to get in their things? That's always intrigued me about personal organizers.
Yeah. Usually by the time people have called, they are so ready that they just, and I don't personally work with hoarders beyond like the level 1 and the level 2. And, I have worked with some that were questionable, but they're usually so ready. They're either really ready that they're just like, I don't care. For me, when I show up, it's like, and I'm never lying when I say this, because people are like, this is the worst you've ever seen. And I'm always like, nope, because it's true. Right. There's always somebody who has more stuff or whatnot. But so it's just putting people at ease for that. But there are other people that, there are some people I show up and they're like, I was going to cancel the second before you rang the doorbell. They just have such shame about it. And I'm like, no, not everybody's born with the ability to keep things in order. And even if they were, circumstances can certainly change. I mean, even for me, that's why I'm an organizer. My circumstances were, I was doing a business, I had children, my parents died, and it was just like, boom, I don't even know how to fix this. And I had a husband who was completely organized, but it was just undoable, so I had to figure out how to fix it. And a lot of it was just time, taking the time and giving yourself grace. That's a huge, huge piece of it.
We tend to not do that enough because we do. I mean, you feel stressed like that and that kind of run down of a situation and, one thing after another. And you're like, no, I'm supposed to be at some level. I'm supposed to show that I'm here or that I got this. And, again, it's this whole facade we feel like we have to put up. But I love that you said that, to give yourself time and grace and say, it's going to be okay, but I might take a little bit to get there,
Yeah. I mean, for me, my husband and I, before we had kids, the house was immaculate because A, we were both out in the corporate world, so we were never in the house. And then B, we didn't have children. And then as they grew, you can watch it on video. You can see the progression of this accumulation of stuff. And that is really what threw us over the edge, was all the stuff. And for me, I had started businesses, so I was never working from home. I didn't have any paperwork prior to, and then you start businesses and you're like, ooh, there's all this stuff for that. And I had run offices, accounting, and I had the skills, but put it was like a perfect storm.
Well, now, and let's talk, well, we're almost getting to the end of our time too, but as far as being an entrepreneur, where you've built this business, how long have you been in business again with that?
With this business for 11 years, but I retired 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, 19 years ago. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Long time. It seems like an eternity ago. I can't even imagine. Yeah.
Well, what's been the most rewarding thing for you about being your own business owner and starting that business over the last 11 years? I mean, maybe it was something that happened 6 months ago, or maybe it happened on the day 2. But what's been the biggest reward for you for being an entrepreneur?
Reward? That's a tough one. I mean, I'd say the perks are being able to be completely 100% flexible.
Yeah.
So I was there for my kids whenever they needed me. Never had to worry about, who was going to bring them here, there, and everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's just that sense of building something, I think. I don't know. That's what I think of, like, wow, I built this. I actually created this. And people actually, I mean, it was probably a good 5 years before business really became business. I mean, prior to that, it was business to me, but it was more like, it looks like you got a hobby there going, the first 3 years you have a loss, and then you start making money. And then after that fifth year point, it just took off. But like I said, if I had had a business coach, things could have been different,
Right.
But maybe it wasn't meant to be because my kids were little when I started.
Right. I mean, you might have had to actually hire somebody else to, either do parts of the business you were still intent on doing, or hire them to try to take care of, hey, go show my kids around so I can take care of this.
Right.
It could change your dynamic for sure.
Yeah. So there's that whole learning process. I mean, I feel like none of it was wasted at all. The entire 11 years, when I look at everything, I mean, social media was just starting then. So I kind of grew with all of that. So for me, that's a big piece of me, is knowing how to work social media and do everything. So that's been huge. Yeah. What was the question again? Rewarding.
I mean, well, I think you talked about it. You built something. Yeah,
I feel like because I built something, because, I retired from a very high position at a very young age. And so it was like, oh, like, who am I now? I'm a mom. That's great. That's hugely rewarding. But being able to actually build something and not just have, okay, I'm a mom and I have to just go find, something, is just like, just taking that plunge and doing it. But I was able to, thankfully.
Right. Well, for anyone who's watching either live or the replay, and if they are thinking of getting started with their own idea, their own business or whatever like that, what would be something you'd say to, tell them to think about as they assess if they should or not?
Yeah. Make sure that you have a backup, meaning, if you're a 2-income family that, you're able to survive on that one income, because the first years you may lose money. You may lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
But if you have that, or if you're working another job and you're doing this on the side, that's even more ideal. If you don't have it, just stick with it, because you're going to have like this year. So this is, like I said, I feel like I'm starting over again. I've had to turn away people for in-person. As I said in December, no, I am going to do this all online, because I've been, working towards that for so many years, but never really pushing forward. I mean, I have, because I've been building my, everything else around it. And so this year, money hasn't been coming in like it was, because I've directed, the in-person clients away. So
yeah, that's hard.
Yeah. So this launch was good. I was like, all right, I'm making money again. And then, when I do it again, I say every time, I'll get back. But the goal is that I would far surpass what I was doing in person, because the online it's easier.
Yeah.
I can reach more people, which I love. Absolutely love working with groups of people, because the energy is just great and everybody kind of works together and fun.
That's awesome. Well, Joann, we've hit the half hour. This show does go by quick, but I kind of like that, because we really just cover a bunch of quick hits about you. But thank you for being on. And we've been sharing your link, Joann Krall, which, by the way, props to you for getting your name on a .com. That's
that was a big thing for me, because when I started my business, nobody put their name on social media. So I was the sensible organizer, right? And so it was 2 years ago when I started Periscope, and I'll just say it quick, that everyone's like, hey, sensible org. And I'm like, so I changed my Twitter, and then I just started rebranding. So I've kept the business name, but yeah, that was key. My whole family has it. We all have our name.
Oh, smart. We actually got some for my kids, and Morgan, I see that, Morgan's already given you an endorsement for your online program. You. Awesome.
Love having you.
Right. But yeah, it's a smart idea. I remember I got my kids both to Gmails that have their names in it, so that, if they need a professional email with their name. And then we did get their .coms just so they could have it, because you just never know. Yeah. That can be worth gold someday. And because,
I was surprised I knew I'd get one of my daughters. The other daughter was taken, but she used her nickname anyways. Yeah. And then I was surprised my husband's was there, because there's a bassist in Canada with his name. So.
Oh, wow. And I have there's a woman bodybuilder with my name, and it's so not me. But I don't know if she has a .com. I can't get mine. Mine's a little too common, but that's okay. I got Rachel.live, so I have that one. So.
That's good.
That's right.
Awesome.
Well, Joann, thank you so much. I'll actually bid you farewell, and everyone say bye to Joann. Thank you so much for being on, and make sure you check out our website, and I will put you down in the lobby, and I'll join you there shortly. Okay? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And with that, it is once again the end of another Concealer Chronicles show. Thank you guys for watching. And whether you're watching live or replay, make sure you tag somebody. There's undoubtedly somebody you know. And Morgan, I see you too, that you got your .com too. Nice job. Morgan Harrell would be a good one too. God, you guys have names that roll right off the tongue. Joann Krall, Morgan Harrell. It's very lovely. Rachel Moore. No, somebody else has it. Darn it. But go get your .com. Go tag somebody in the comments who you think could benefit from watching the show. Whether there's someone like me who's got a kid or self that tends to be a bit of a messy person, or somebody who is, oh God, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, or I want to be one. Joann covered a ton of bases tonight, and it was great talking to her, because she is so authentic and is a woman in charge of a lot of stuff. So next week, I believe we're having a double whammy kind of thing. We're having 2 conference organizers on the show. Ann Krall organized Social Media Day Denver, and it was here in Denver just this last June 30th. June 30th is Social Media Day around the globe, thus declared by Mashable.com. But Ann Krall organized the one here in Denver. And then we're also going to have Sharon Washington. She has organized Market Simple, the summit. And I believe that's actually been a few years in the running. Erin was doing an inaugural, like the first one for Social Media Day Denver. Sharon has been doing several of her Market Simple, the summit in Baltimore, Maryland. And we're going to have both of them on the show tomorrow, or next week rather, next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, to talk about what it's like to be a woman organizing a conference. Because that's like organizing a wedding, okay? Let's be honest. So I can't wait to have them both on and compare notes and talk about their experience and what it was like. But make sure you check it out. Next Wednesday, we'll be right back here at 9 p.m. Eastern. Plus, after the show, I'm going to be going on to Vicky Fitch's show. It's going to be a live stream extravaganza that night. It's crazy. But just make sure you follow ConcealerChronicles.live and share your woman in charge moment, whether it's good, bad, or real, at the hashtag Concealer Chronicles. Would love to see that. You guys have a great evening and a great week, and I'll see you next Wednesday right back here for the next show of the Concealer Chronicles. Bye.